Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality you expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering, discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. Joining me today, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's going on is today we are talking all about Music by John Williams, the new documentary that dropped on Disney Plus this week, as big Star Wars fans especially, but many other bits of John Williams' repertoire. I was like, oh, this will be a fun thing to do, especially coming out of, we did Agatha All Along last week. We've got a little bit of time to kill this month before we dive into like holiday stuff in December again. So I was like, oh, this will be a fun one to jump in. And, we don't do documentaries all that often, so it's a nice little change of pace for this one. Picked it because John Williams is great. Always great seeing him and hearing just his wonderful work in orchestrations. History lesson, originally released November 1st, 2024. And I mentioned I teed up this right before we started for Cameron. Rather than doing like our normal little box office history thing of like how much money did this movie make and where did it fall in the rankings, I thought we could play a little game. I have gone to thenumbers.com and pulled the highest grossing films worldwide gross where John Williams is credited as a composer. These are not adjusted for inflation, but I have... I have in front of me the top 25 total overall, but I'm going to basically I want you to guess like what movies you think are his highest grossing. But I'm also going to say I have of those top 25, I have pulled out a top 10 that makes it one per franchise. Because if I didn't do that, the top 10 of this would just be across 5 different franchises, and it's just, all right, which ones are, which are the Star Wars, which are the other things. So basically, like, if you hit on a franchise, I'll ask, like, which one in the franchise do you think is the highest grossing? And I'll talk about, like, where the others in that franchise rank. So I have, again, top 25 overall, but in particular, I'm looking to you to see if you can identify or how many of the top 10, one per franchise, not adjusted for inflation again, worldwide grosses in John Williams' career. So what do you want to throw out there as a first guess here, Cam?
I mean, I'm trying to think. It has to be one that grossed over $1 billion.
He has 5 films that have grossed over $1 billion.
This is where I'm getting into it.
This is all again not adjusted for inflation. So factor that in terms of like, oh, this is probably going to be a little bit newer heavy. There are absolutely some exceptions to that rule, but like, it's you might see more recent Star Wars on here above Star Wars Episode 4, for example.
I want to say Last Jedi.
Last Jedi is number 2. There is one Star Wars higher than that.
Then I would say The Force Awakens.
Force Awakens is the number 1 overall.
I couldn't remember which one made more money.
Yep.
Because I know Rise of Skywalker did not clear that.
Yeah.
So
it's number 3.
Oh, it's number 3.
Star Wars Force Awakens is number 1 at $2.056 billion. Then Last Jedi at $1.67 billion, and then Rise of Skywalker at $1.069 billion. So,
and my personal ranking
are the top 3 of those 3.
And my personal ranking of the sequel trilogy. Interesting.
Yeah. Elsewhere in the Star Wars oeuvre on this list, I will call out. I'm trying to pull up how can I highlight these so I can like easily keep track of what has already been covered? There we go. Star Wars Phantom Menace is number 5.
Makes sense.
$1.046 billion. So like Force Awakens and Phantom Menace being the like, oh, Star Wars is back. Everybody went to see it.
Yes.
Obviously doing.
And you said is 4 a Star Wars or no?
So Star Wars Episode 3 is number 8 on the overall list.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the next one here in the ranking. That was $848 million. Then we have finally at number 12 overall, Star Wars: A New Hope, $775 million.
That was definitely not adjusted for inflation.
Exactly. I imagine if I thought to do this about 20 minutes before you got here, so that's why I did not also go through and be like, all right, let me try and do these like adjusted for inflation.
Sure.
Because I was like, I basically was in the shower. I was like, this will be a fun idea to do. Let me see if I can pull it together before Cameron gets here. Star Wars Attack of the Clones was number 13 at 656 million. Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, number 16 with 549 million. And then Return of the Jedi at 482 million.
Nice.
Number 19 overall. So
What was number 4 though?
so number 4 is a different franchise. That's why I didn't give you number 4.
Oh, if it's not just for inflation, would it be Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is number 10 overall.
Interesting.
But that is the highest ranked of the
Indiana Jones, okay.
franchise.
Man, so this is not an Indiana Jones. It's not a Star Wars.
Elsewhere in Indiana Jones land, we have Last Crusade and Dial of Destiny at numbers 21 and 22, respectively. 474 million for Last Crusade, 383 million for Dial of Destiny, and then Raiders of the Lost Ark, number 24 overall, 367 million. Yeah. So basically, only Temple of Doom does not crack the top 25 here.
Number 4
for Indiana Jones stuff.
Saving Private Ryan?
Saving Private Ryan is number 17 overall.
Oof, okay. Trying to think. We're talking
485 million.
We're talking big blockbuster hit from.
And I'll say, in terms of like, if I pull out the like top 10 where it's like only one per franchise, you've gotten the number 1 of Star Wars, you've gotten the number 5 for Indiana Jones, and then now Saving Private Ryan, number 7. So there's
the
number 2 franchise, the number 3 franchise, and the number 4 franchise are still like on the table there.
Oof, okay. I'm trying to think, because what we learned in this documentary, he's had a wide swath.
Yeah,
of,
I mean, from the documentary, hit on a couple that like that.
I mean, I'm trying to think like what like an Oliver Stone film maybe.
No, I'll give you that.
I was thinking maybe I don't know how well Born on the 4th of July did is my thing.
I mean, again, going to the documentary, think of the big franchises that are touched.
I mean, I guess oh gosh, if we're talking about E.T.
E.T. is number 4 on the franchise list.
The franchise list. Gosh,
number 9 overall.
Number 9 overall. Okay, so bigger than E.T.
797 million.
Bigger than E.T. I'm trying to think. If we're talking Spielberg, we're talking.
I will say one of these is Spielberg and one of these is not.
Okay, one of them is Spielberg.
In terms of like the number 2 and number 3 franchises.
If number 2, if it's not, weird. If it's not Spielberg, so I'm gonna try to figure out the Spielberg one because I'm trying to think like Spielberg's top ones. And I'm trying to think. I thought Saving Private Ryan was his most.
I mean, you're gonna kick yourself for not getting it sooner. I think when you do get it,
is it Jaws?
Jaws is number 8. So Jaws is on the list here.
Okay,
486 million.
Okay,
number 18 overall, but 8 on the franchise list here. So that's one. Think more recent than Jaws. Think basically between Jaws and now, like in it like. More or less in the middle of those two eras.
Between Jaws and now?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking that there's Star Wars, there's Indiana Jones, there's E.T., there's...
He had a big 1993.
Big 19... Oh, duh, Jurassic Park. I'm an idiot.
Park.
Jurassic Park, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park, number 2 on the overall franchise, 1.058 billion. Number 4 overall. And I will clarify here in case anybody is like a super numbers nerd or anything like that. I specifically have called out where he is listed as the composer because really Jurassic World and like the Jurassic World movies are up there in the multi-billion-dollar ranks too, but they just used his theme. He's not the composer on those ones, but he was the composer on the original Jurassic Park. And also Lost World Jurassic Park was number 14.
Makes sense.
So that's the other one.
Did he not come back for Jurassic Park 3?
He did not do Jurassic Park.
Oh, there you go. He said, "You're not bringing back Jeff Goldblum? No, thank you."
Yeah, so we've got another we've got one more franchise here. Like the next one down, the number 3 franchise overall is a franchise. Then we have
Oh, it's Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Yeah.
Yeah, duh.
Which of the Harry Potters do you think is the highest grossing?
Oof. I want to say 2. Sorcerer's Stone.
Reminder
Or not
here-
Sorcerer's Stone, of Chamber of Secrets.
Reminder here that he only did the first 3.
First 3? Oh, then I'm going to say...
per that.
Yeah, then I would say
documentary.
Prisoner of Azkaban, because if I remember correctly, they made more money as they went on.
No.
Oh, no?
they did not.
Then
Or
I'm
at
gonna say
least- at least
Sorcerer's-
not of these 3.
Then I'm going to say Sorcerer's Stone then.
Yeah, Sorcerer's Stone is
Obviously the big launch.
Sorcerer's Stone number 6 overall, number 3 here on the franchise stuff. Chamber of Secrets number 7, so right behind it, and then Prisoner of Azkaban is number 11. So Sorcerer's Stone was 963 million, Chamber of Secrets 874 million, and Prisoner of Azkaban 783 million. And with those, you now have like of the top 25, you have identified 21 of them.
There we go.
So there's so
What can I say?
next is like 15 overall, 6 in terms of the highest ranking. And I'll say like this and number 10 are probably going to be the hardest ones for you to get or pull. Number 20, aka the 9th highest franchise entry overall on this list, you might be able to pull. It's featured a little bit in the documentary.
Schindler's List.
Not Schindler's List. That I think that fell outside the top 25 here.
That makes sense. It was a rated R film, and it was of like a very difficult subject.
Yeah, it's probably in like the 30 area. So yeah,
AI, artificial intelligence.
nope, that fell a few below that. That's probably like 35.
Okay.
If I'm looking at
I'm trying to think about like the movies that I saw him score. Like they talk about him scoring in there. JFK was featured pretty prominently, and that's an Oliver Stone film.
It is JFK further down. JFK did worse than Jaws 2.
That doesn't surprise me. It was a weird movie.
Yeah, I'll say the next one on here again. I don't think this is going to help too much, but 2005. It is a Spielberg movie, I believe. Let me double check
2005
that.
Spielberg. So this is post Saving Private Ryan. This is 2001 was when he did AI, artificial intelligence. So it's post that. So I'm trying to think. Are any of them Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Close Encounters of the Third Kind, another one that's like just outside the top 25.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm trying to like go through like what I remember his repertoire was. I saw Nixon on his bookshelf, but I don't think Nixon's going to be up there.
Yeah, no. This is I'll say this was it is a remake. I'm double checking. Yeah, so this is a Steven Spielberg one. It is a remake of a classic Orson Welles
War of the Worlds?
War of the Worlds.
Okay.
606 million. There, number 15 overall. The next thing I was going to give you was Tom Cruise in it. So yeah, War of the Worlds there, number 15 overall, 6 on the like franchise list. So I'll say the number 20 and 25 are 2 of the 3 that you're missing here. Both of those are in the same franchise. So there's one more franchise on here that you could potentially ping.
Ooh.
And I'll say in particular, it is particularly relevant given this week's political news.
Sorry, the first answer that came to my head was Manchurian Candidate. No, sorry. Because that is a remake remade in the 2000s. It's not the right one because War of the Worlds was the one you're referencing for the remake. But
Yeah.
no. Trying to think here. Franchises that I associate with John Williams.
It is a franchise that we've done on Disney on that D Plus show.
Oh. Okay. This is really stretching my brain right now. I'm digging it. I'm really digging it.
It is a holiday franchise that we've
Oh,
done.
Home Alone. That's right. Because that's right. He talked about it.
They bring him in. They had somebody else, and they bring him in, and he does it. Yeah, Home Alone.
And Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
Yeah, Home Alone is 476 million. That was number 20.
And that's why it's relevant to.
Yeah, exactly. Home Alone, Lost in New York.
Oh, also I saw the news that Macaulay Culkin is going to be in Fallout Season 2.
Oh, neat. I had not seen that. So yeah, Home Alone there, number 9 on the franchise list, 476 million, and then Home Alone 2 is number 25 overall here, 358 million. So the only one you're missing here is probably one of the hardest ones on this to pull because it's just a movie I don't ever think about. 2011, another Spielberg thing. In particular, this is animated. No, animated.
Oh, it's animated.
Yeah.
Animated.
It's number 23 overall.
Spielberg animated. The first thing that comes to mind is like the Fievel series, Fievel Goes West, and Coming to America. Not Coming to America. That's a different film.
Those are Don Bluth. I don't think.
Yeah, those are Don Bluth. That's why I'm like, I don't think they'd make it in there. It's an animated 2011 film. What did John Williams and Steven Spielberg do in 2011 that was animated?
It is based on I believe like a classic British character cartoon or animated series.
Oh, Tintin.
Yeah.
It's Belgium.
Okay.
There was a Belgium series. Tintin.
Okay. Yes, The Adventures of Tintin, $373 million there.
That 10. Movie was weird.
Number 10 in terms of like John Williams' highest ranked franchises.
They animated them to look like real people, but they kept the Tintin eyes, which are like these big black dots, and it was creepy as heck.
Yeah. So again, 25 was Home Alone 2, 24 Raiders of the Lost Ark, number 23 Adventures of Tintin, 22 Dial of Destiny, 21 Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, number 20 Home Alone, number 19 Return of the Jedi, number 18 Jaws, number 17 Saving Private Ryan, number 16 The Empire Strikes Back, number 15 War of the Worlds, number 14 The Lost World Jurassic Park, number 13 Attack of the Clones, number 12 A New Hope, number 11 Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, number 10 Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, number 9 E.T. the Extraterrestrial, number 8 The Revenge of the Sith, number 7 Chamber of Secrets, number 6 Sorcerer's Stone, number 5 The Phantom Menace, number 4 Jurassic Park, number 3 Rise of Skywalker, number 2 The Last Jedi, and number 1 The Force Awakens. Overall, by the numbers, he's got worldwide box office of 25 billion. And that's almost 26 billion just as composer credits. If you throw in like additionals where he's like credited as a songwriter, like the Jurassic World ones, you're looking at closer to 30 billion overall.
As we learned, this guy has been in the business for 65 years or something like that, like starting from being a pianist to a conductor to a composer. Like,
yep.
This guy has had he had a meteoric rise to being a composer, and then has been composing stuff for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like a true working artist, they mentioned it before. He's a true journeyman. He has been just working his craft for years.
Indeed.
And just a master of it. So
yes, a little bit more of the history before we dive into our thoughts on the documentary overall. The documentary has a runtime of 1 hour and 46 minutes. In the Disney Plus original documentaries timeline of things, we had Stan Lee, June 16th of 2023. We had Madhu, which was a March 2024 documentary on a child ballet dancer, a young man, I think from a South African country that kind of was like making his way around the world to follow ballet. Tiger was an April 2024 nature documentary released on Earth Day. The Beach Boys was May of 2024. Jim Henson Idea Man, May 31st of 2024. And then music by John Williams here, November 1st. And then The next one on the slate, end of November, November 29th, is Beatles 64. So we'll see how that one plays out. The roll call here, I really only identified or pulled out the director, Laurent Bouzereau, who has done a few hundred documentary-style credits on IMDb, going back to a 1995 project that he did called The Making of Jaws. Probably was, his foothold into working with Spielberg on a lot of these things. A lot of his stuff is like DVD extras from like the golden age of DVD extra documentaries, especially on a lot of Spielberg's projects over the years. And he has documented making of projects for over 150 different films. So basically a film historian, documentarian kind of character. Obviously, lots of different people make pop-ups and cameos in here that I'm sure we'll talk about as we discuss the project overall. A little bit more trivia here, just kind of John Williams by the numbers. He has. Are you looking at the doc?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Then I'll give you one more quiz here.
Ooh, yeah.
So he has.
I am careful when we are doing the stuff. I'm trying not to be in the doc.
Gotcha. So he has 5 Oscar wins and 54 nominations overall,
Yeah,
which makes him the current record holder for like most nominations by a living person. Not the overall record holder. There are a couple ahead of him, including I believe Walt Disney is like the number 1 at like 92 nominations. But yeah, John Williams with 54 nominations over his career is the most decorated living member of the Academy in terms of nominations. So of those 5 wins, what do you think his wins are from?
They literally named them all in the documentary. I'm trying to remember which one. I'm trying to think. One was Schindler's List.
Schindler's List is one, yep.
One is for Star Wars.
Yep.
One is for...
There's one in between Star Wars and Schindler's List.
Yeah, it's not E.T., is it?
It is E.T.
It is E.T., yep. Okay.
Yep. Best original score for all 3 of those. So you got 2 more that are pre-Star Wars.
That are pre-Star Wars. I want to say Jaws, but I don't think it's Jaws. Jaws is one of them?
Yep, Jaws is one of them.
Jaws is one of them.
Those are his 4 best original scores. The other Oscar I'll give you a hint for, because it's not, I wouldn't associate him with this movie as like a composer because it was a pre-existing thing, but he did the best scoring adaptation and original song score for a project.
Fiddler on the Roof.
Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah. Yes. I would also shout out to that Fiddler on the Roof incarnation, because that is one of like the best musicals put to film ever.
Yeah, Zero Mostel. Yep. That was like, seeing that, I was like, I had no idea he worked on that Fiddler.
When he talked about editing it and like what they had to do and like the complications behind it, I'm just like, they made such a big deal out of Les Mis when they were adapting that for film, about like how they were all strapped with mics and zoomed in real close to see them sing. And he's just like, yeah, I just had to like work out the idiosyncrasies of the composition of the music, so it went around the words, and like we made sure we got everybody's vocals through. And I'm just like, this, like years before they did the Les Mis movie, John Williams just did it in a cave with a box of scraps. Like he just did it in a 70s sound studio in LA. Like,
yeah,
it's insane. This guy is just insane.
Yeah. He has 3 Emmy wins and 6 additional nominations. He has 26 Grammys, 76 total nominations. He is a Kennedy Center honoree from 2004, won the National Medal of Arts in 2009, the AFI Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016. He is an honorary Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire from, he got that in 2022. And most recently, he was inducted into the like Disney Legends class of 2024. Sadly, he didn't make an appearance there, but he did get basically gushing introduction and honorifics from Kathleen Kennedy and Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford being another one of the Disney Legends from this year.
Yep.
I have in the doc here like his full list of Academy Award nominations. His first one was for Valley of the Dolls in 1968. And then, as we touched on, First Win was there. Fiddler on the Roof. Nominated for the Poseidon Adventure and Towering Inferno. Jaws and Star Wars he wins. He then gets nominated in just a crazy run he gets nominated for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was also up against Star Wars. So basically he beat himself in 1978 there. He gets nominated 1979 for Superman, 1981 for Empire Strikes Back, 1982 for Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then he goes on to win in 1983 for E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Then 1984, nominated for Return of the Jedi. 85, he's nominated for Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, as well as The River. Then he took a few years off, or just wasn't nominated for a few years. But Empire of the Sun and The Witches of Eastwick, he gets nominated in 88.
That's right. He was nominated for both those movies came out that year. That's insane.
Yep. Born on the 4th of July and Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade in 1990. Home Alone in 1991 that he got nominated for. JFK in 92. He wins in 94 with Schindler's List. And then we're just back on Sabrina, Nixon, Sleepers, Amistad, Saving Private Ryan, Angela's Ashes, The Patriot, Artificial Intelligence, and Harry Potter in the same year in 2002. Catch Me If You Can, 2003. Prisoner of Azkaban, 2005. Memoirs of a Geisha and Munich in 2006. Then some time away again. Then back in 2012 with the duo of Adventures of Tintin and Warhorse. Lincoln, The Book Thief. Then the run of Star Wars sequel trilogies. The Fabelmans, and then most recently his nomination last year, which also I believe made him the oldest ever nominee at 92 years old for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So, long lineage of work there in the Academy.
And that's just his film stuff that he's been nominated for, not to mention the Grammys that he's won, the Academy Awards that he's won.
The Oscars and Academy.
Oh, sorry,
Awards, I mentioned he won 26 Grammys and 3 Emmys.
And 3 Emmys, that's it. The Emmys is what I was thinking.
A handful of BAFTAs too. Out there, I'm sure.
Just handful of these like prestigious awards that one is enough to like make an artist feel like they've made it and like accomplished their career. He just has them. I love that they showed his like shelf, and it's just kind of like thrown together of his wins. Like other people would have just like one of those like on a podium somewhere, like anything like that, or like a set of them like on like a thing, and he just has them like ramshackled together on a like. This man is just so accomplished, and that's not even talking about like his television career. Like the defining television themes that people think about were all written by John Williams. Like,
Plus, I mean, like, they touch on in the documentary the Olympics themes for a few Olympics there. Sports Center, was it Sports Center? No, NBC News or something like some kind of like just epic jingle where it's like, oh, that's a John Williams joint.
Oh, right, it's Monday Night Football.
I don't think it's Monday Night Football.
It's Monday Night Football. He wrote Monday Night Football, like the jingle for Monday Night Football.
That doesn't sound right. Who wrote the jingle for Monday Night Football? Google. Monday Night Football jingle. Hank Williams Jr. is the person who's coming up for that.
Well, there's a Monday Night Football song, but I'm trying to think of. Let me see here. John Williams Football.
Yeah.
There's a former player
Anyway.
song.
Other trivia unrelated to his accolades.
He Sunday Night Football, NBC's Sunday Night Football. He did the score for.
Okay, well, there you go.
There you go.
So as touched on in the movie here, John Williams served as the principal conductor for the Boston Pops Orchestra from 1980 all the way through 1993, with that little brief resignation in 1984 that was quickly resolved.
That's one of the best things ever in the documentary. We'll go into it in a moment. But.
And he continues to serve as the Pops Laureate conductor and regularly returns to lead several occasions per year. Oftentimes he returns for like holiday pops and stuff like that. And then just in that spirit, I pulled a little bit. The Phoenix Symphony is literally doing a celebration of John Williams music November 15th through the 17th here in town a week from now. And I imagine having worked there previously, and knowing that John Williams does a pretty good penny for them, I hope it brings them a little bit of a successful weekend as they do John Williams. I don't think he's coming out to conduct or anything. I think they're just doing his
For the Phoenix Symphony? I don't think so.
He has in the past.
Oh, sure. But I mean, now he's 92. I'm sure he's like being very picky with his.
I mean, the documentary very much kind of seems to like he still shows up and does a thing at the Hollywood Bowl, and he still does a thing. He still does the things out at Boston Pop because like those are the two that are his home bases for like the fact that this touches on. After Star Wars blows up, the LA Philharmonic, which admittedly a little bit triggering to me because I'm working with them in my work life. But like it was still cool to also hear that and see like, oh yeah, of course. But yeah, them bringing him in to guest conduct at the Hollywood Bowl because Star Wars is like so crazy popular and all that stuff, and that he's been doing that for 45 years. Is really cool. And then yeah, him being brought in a time where like absolutely in the 1980s that like snobbery against pop culture, modern music, like he is coming in to do the pops, and pops being the like segue into more modern composers, but also pop culture composer, like film composers. A lot of the stuff they touch on that made me think very much of like the same kind of like pushback we often see with like gaming composers and like game concerts and stuff like that, being like, no, fuck you. Like that is really good, expertly composed music. And when you throw that in front of a symphony orchestra, it can really sing.
We went to see Final Fantasy in concert, and it is one of the best things I've ever seen done. And ever listened to. Listening to that concert live was a incredible experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, Mario concerts or Zelda concerts, especially. And I haven't seen a Zelda concert live, but when Tears of the Kingdom came out, they did. And you can find it on YouTube, but they basically did like a 20-minute concert on the Nintendo YouTube channel in Japan of like Zelda themes and stuff over the years, Zelda songs over the years, and just very compelling, beautiful orchestrations of those. But yeah, like I remember in high school being like just playing around on like the marimba or the xylophone and just kind of playing like the Tetris theme. And just being like, like this is the music that speaks to me, much more so than a Bach or a Beethoven or something like that. So I really appreciated that. Like
we just need our own John Williams to kind of like break down the barrier, break down the door.
Yeah. I mean, the Final Fantasy Distant World concert, I think, is the most prevalent at doing that, or the most consistent at doing that. There was the. Tommy Tallarico, if you've watched that H-Bomber Guy video, who did the video game concerts until H-Bomber Guy basically like called him out for all of the other stuff he did.
I have not watched that one.
That's a good one. It's the one he did before the big plagiarism one that was like his like other epic that he stumbled into, like finding this crazy rabbit hole. But yeah, it's a good one. But yeah, that was another one of like, oh yeah, like the video game concerts and stuff like that. I mean, so even now, as much as I have my gripes and issues with Jeff Keighley and the Game Awards, the fact that they, make a show of the video game music at the Game Awards every year and bring in the talent that they do, and then over the summer they did like video game music at the Hollywood Bowl. It's just I think there's certainly more of an audience for video game music now, but it's probably at the same scope as like movie music was 40 years ago. Anyway, that's what we have for the trivia. Obviously the whole movie is pretty much here's trivia about John Williams. I'll throw it to you, Cam. What were some of your big takeaways from this? What really sung for you in this documentary?
There's three really big takeaways for me. The first is his career spanning of being a starting from when he was just doing the piano on some shows and stuff to moving to conductor to then moving to composer. Just that level of aptitude that he has about music, transitioning all the way to he plays you a song and you're like, okay. And then you see it adapted to your film as he has an orchestra doing it. And you're like, oh, like the George Lucas moment, like the big wow moment for George Lucas with Star Wars. The big Jaws moment because he tells John Williams, oh, I want you to use the one from that one movie or show that you did. Mm-hmm. And him being like, well, no, because those are like the sounds of like shrieking and like sharp noises. He goes, you don't want that. He goes, you want something that, like, and he does it. And it's like, yeah, he wants something of like the depths, like the intricacies of the sea, the mystery, and like it's a high adventure.
Yeah. And the simplicity of it.
The simplicity of it. Yeah. Just brilliant. 6 notes. That's it. It's just 6 notes and they repeat themselves and that's it.
Yeah.
In different keys. Like that's it. It's just 6 notes in different keys and it makes all the difference. And him also being like, well, yeah, because it's from the perspective of the killer. In this case, it's the shark. So it's underwater. So you want that feel of it. You want when they're on the ship chasing Jaws, you want it to be of like high adventure. And it's like, he watches these movies without any music or like some sample music on them. And he goes, got it. And he just does it.
I love that the fact that they touch on that of like editors putting in temp tracks of like, this is the feel we're going for. And I love the other composers being interviewed being like, that can be such a pain point for us because then you're like, as soon as you hear that, all of the other potential has been like thrown out the window.
Yeah.
And you're now kind of like, you've gone from an infinite number of possibilities to a significantly more narrow scope in terms of what you might consider. But yeah, like part of John Williams' brilliance is kind of pushing past that or breaking free of that and being like, okay, I get why you've made the choices you've made in this temp track, but here's what I hear, here's what I see. I love the Spielberg quote in there of like, after I see a cut of my movie with John's music, I see my movie how he sees my movie.
Yes.
Being like just like I my favorite parts of this were probably just when Steven Spielberg and John Williams were there just like bantering together and doing their little because it is such a beautiful collaboration over their history. And I loved because I obviously I've known that like John Williams is Steven Spielberg's go-to, but I didn't know, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, like just what a music nerd Spielberg was, to the point that like he sought out John Williams, who's, you know, like how many people in that age were being like, this is who I want to compose my stuff because I think he's got a great ear for it.
They weren't though, because that was the whole point of it. He goes, I wanted a guy who does orchestras.
Yeah.
Because everybody else was using soundtrack samples. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's just, I don't want that. I want somebody who does an orchestra for my movies. And he even said, like, he's like, I think I actually put him off a little bit because he thought I was just like some geek.
Yeah.
Because people.
And then I love the cut to John Williams being like, he knew more about music than I did.
Yeah. And
more about movie music.
Movie music, yeah. Because he's like, yeah, I don't know anything about movie music because I don't watch movies. And Steven Spielberg being like such a massive nerd and geek, but also Steven Spielberg was in his early 20s. Mm-hmm. John Williams was 40 at this point. John Williams is like, and
he's already like, the old guard of Hollywood at that point.
Because you have it, he's worked on everything from like, he goes, I worked, like he was talking about the movie season. He's like, I was doing a lot of comedies for a while. And I was like, I don't want to do comedies. I want to do something bigger. So I did Fiddler on the Roof. And he goes, because I want to do something with a big budget. And he goes, the biggest budgets at the time were musicals. And he's like, so I got my experience doing that. And it's just like, it's crazy. And then he does the movie, Steven Spielberg's first movie with like Goldie Hawn, Sugarland Express, which I've never seen before. No. I'm very curious about that. I looked it up on like Wikipedia. I was like, that seems like a cool movie. I want to check it out sometime. But yeah, no, it's a really cool, like, that's what Steven Spielberg started with. And you actually kind of see some classic Spielberg shots in that, like the classic overhead, like almost helicopter shot. You have all that really cool stuff going on, but it's like, he says, oh, okay, I watched your movie. Okay, cool. So I'm going to need a guitar. I need this guy to do harmonica for me. Mm-hmm. And like one other person. And that'll be our core for it. And it's like, what do you mean that's your core for it, for like a lot of the soundtrack? And then it's like, nope, because then you get this hauntingly beautiful harmonica and guitar playing going on. And he goes, yeah, I got this guy. He's a friend of mine. He's like one of the last great harmonica like performers of like his age. And it's just like, oh yeah, no, that's just John Williams. He's just been in, because he grew up in Hollywood too. His dad was a drummer.
Yeah.
And so he goes, he knew that was a stable way to make an income as a musician. That was his goal.
Yeah.
Which is also another thing too, is like, this guy is so unassuming. He's just so like, yeah, I've done some good work. And it's like he goes, oh yeah, no, like I see you watch the movies that you make. He goes, when I compose them, and then like the cut after with the director, with Steven or George, sure. And they're like, and then he's like, but it's very clear after that he never watches them again.
Yeah.
This is just like his job is to make the music, and that's his job.
That said, like I love, and obviously some of these are gonna be way more important in his life overall, kind of thing. But I love like when he's just sitting there at the piano and just can like from memory pull Leia's theme or Yoda's theme.
Does it that way? Yeah,
it's
like yeah, it never leaves his brain.
Yeah.
It's always there, and I love that about him. So like one of those things is that it's like just the scope of his career, the breadth of it. I love that he says my luckiest day of my life was the day I met Steve.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to who's really close to him, because it's the people who call him Johnny.
Yeah.
Shout out to that also being like, oh, you're going to be making movies now. You can't call yourself Johnny Williams anymore. You should need to go John Williams. He goes, that makes sense. I'm at this point in my career. I'm in my like mid 30s. I should be going by John now instead of Johnny.
Yeah.
And there's that. The second thing that I want to pull out is that I did not realize like how much of a like working family man he was. Of like, he had his wife, but he had his like 9 to 5, and then on top of that, he goes, well, if I need to work late, I can't work at home. I have to work at the office.
The kids are too distracting.
The kids are too distracting. It's like, I'm kind of curious why like only one of your kids is in this documentary, but
I mean,
not curious.
Like, they touch on like one of them is the lead
singer of Toto.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I didn't know that.
The other is like a serious accompanist.
Yeah.
He's been the drummer for like Whitney Houston. I looked him up. He's been the drummer for like Whitney Houston. He's a really brilliant accompanist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's very cool. Like all of that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then, but on top of that though, it's when his wife dies out of the aneurysm, and all of a sudden he's like, and I just like, I had these 3 teenagers at home, so I didn't work for a while. And I'm like, oh, that's, so many other people would have like buried themselves in their work and like ignored their children. Like so many of the quote unquote greats would have done that. And the only thing he wrote during that time was the violin concerto in honor of his wife.
Yeah.
And he said, I always told her that I would write one for her. And of course, I didn't while working. And like, I listened to some of the tracks from that concerto, and it's beautiful. Like it's beautiful work. But it's like, because I was like, oh, I know that he's been married twice, but I kind of assumed that he got divorced at some point. But it's like, no, incredibly tragic death. Remarries like 6 years later, but like, that's 6 years later, and all of his kids are adults at that point. And so he remarries, and I'm like, and his next wife is like a photographer and just like a real sweetheart. And it's like, this man has lived a very like quote unquote normal life for a guy who is. And this is the third thing I'm going to say that I wanted to pull from it. This is the greatest composer of all, like in my opinion, of all time now. I am even like, I will throw John Williams up with Bach and Beethoven, like of like classic, incredible people, like incredible, composers. John Williams is up there for me with them. Regardless of that, he's, like all this stuff, like it's like, no, this man has been composing for like, 60 years, 65 years.
Yeah. I've long held the idea that, 200 years from now, if symphonic orchestras are still a thing and are still playing, that they will be playing John Williams music and Nobuo Uematsu in the same way that they play Beethoven and Bach now. Like those are the modern day composers that will, I think, stand the test of time just because of the themes and the leitmotifs and whatnot.
Nobuo Uematsu, I would agree with you on that, on like the grandness of his work, but I just think John Williams on the breadth of his work.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. That's, I mean, John Williams will be getting way more playtime than Nobuo Uematsu. I think like Nobuo Uematsu will be like the Dvorak or Dvorchik or whatever.
Voracek, or like he'll be one of those.
He'll
like
be the Rachmaninoff of that era, kind of.
Of our era.
People will know the name and they'll know his themes and stuff, but he's not going to be the big marquee. Every
Symphony
season
Hall,
has a weekend of this music in the way that they'll have like a Weekend of Williams.
Yeah,
and I think like there are
also like just imagine like the song choices you have for Williams.
Yeah,
the breadth of them. A weekend could be everything. It can be anything from comedy songs to drama. Like you have anything from you have anything from Jaws to Schindler's List. You have everything from Star Wars to Saving Private Ryan. You have it's insane. His work is insane.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, Phoenix Symphony is going to be doing a weekend of him here, and it will probably be a bunch of those. But they've also done weekends where it's just John Williams Star Wars music or just Jurassic Park music,
because it's that dang good, and it's that there's just that much of it.
Yeah. And also, especially as we've done with the Spider-Verse concerts, now that playing live orchestral music alongside a film with the music removed is becoming more and more of a thing that concerts do. Like Phoenix Symphony, when I worked with them, was 4 years into doing the Harry Potter movies every year kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or they do Jurassic Park play-alongs or Star Wars, obviously being another big one. So yeah, there are so many of those that are just, hey, do you want to come see this movie in an interesting way with live, perform with the music performed live before you?
And as people who have done it, I would say it's an incredible experience that you should definitely do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking of okay, I want to see Ghostbusters in concert. I want to see, there's a lot of movies I would love to see in concert like that.
I would say Indiana Jones would be one that I'd love to do.
Dude, yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark would be incredible that way.
Like Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and Jurassic Park probably.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I loved it when he brought up. He goes, "Yeah, for Jurassic Park, I just did some horns," and it's you brilliant man. You have you're so brilliant, and you're just yeah, I did some stuff. And it's I'm you're the best kind of brilliant genius in that you're just yeah, I just lived a normal life. It's no, you've composed for at minimum 52 of the best movies of all time. Jeez.
I loved
shout out also to his disaster movie stuff he did. Poseidon, the Poseidon Adventure,
Towering Inferno.
Tower of Inferno. It's oh yeah, no, that's right, because those soundtracks are
Earthquake.
Earthquake. They're super important because that's how you feel the emotion. The camera shakes or the camera has fire on it, but it's not that until you hear the music that it hits you.
Yeah. I loved the bit where he just kind of is oh, here's a page of a whole bunch of different 5-note options that we looked at and tried for Close Encounters, and this one that's circled is obviously the one we went with. And then he plays it and then does a 5-minute music theory class on why this is the one we chose and why it works and why it makes sense. It's because it's leaving you on a butt. It's not a closed frame. It's leaving it open-ended for what's next.
And then he says the most difficult thing he had to write that he's ever had to write is that last section of Close Encounters. And it's and then they show that sequence and it's you're right, that would be extremely difficult to try to figure out.
Yeah.
How do we do music to make it work like this? And it's to communicate to the all of that is just insane.
Yeah. I loved the growing Spielberg joke of he gave me 2 notes in Jaws, he gave me 5 notes in Close Encounters, and then finally we've got to a big orchestra thing.
Yeah. Well, I loved it because he's I called my dad and I was he's just giving me 2 notes. I don't know what to do about it. And his dad just being you'll figure it out. Now when are we go? When are we gonna go grab lunch? Mm-hmm. Love that. I love that his the relationships he has with people around him, I think help define also John Williams in such a great way. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the people who showed up for his it's this they base this around the time that the music studio is being named after him at
Yeah, the Sony Pictures music studio.
Yeah.
The John Williams Music Building at Sony Pictures
Yeah.
Studio.
They're doing that, and he it hit, like, you see Oliver Stone. I think it was Oliver Stone. George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were there.
I didn't catch Stone, but I also don't immediately look. I saw J.J. Abrams was there.
J.J. Abrams was there. I don't know if George Lucas was there.
I think he probably was.
He probably was. Okay. Maybe I know there's one guy who has, like, my best bet is that's Oliver Stone. I don't know exactly if it's Oliver Stone, but if I had to bet who are the most important directors that he's ever worked with, I would say Oliver Stone's up there.
Yeah. But I loved his little joke there of when I first started working here 65 years ago, I thought one day this will all be mine.
Because his dad brought him when he was a kid. He's like, he thinking oh yeah, I'm gonna own this one day. Because he was a little dumb kid.
Yeah.
And then it turned out to be true. Because it turns out he was. I also love that even working in the military, he was a GI, and even then people were picking up oh, you're extremely talented when it comes to music. Because he was writing jazz music as a GI.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes is he goes, well, I was really into jazz in my late teens. George Lucas is saying this. I was really into jazz in my late teens. And so I was listening to his, and he names the album that it was. He goes, I used to listen to this all the time. And it pays into it later because he goes, John Williams, he goes, the jazz musician?
Jazz musician?
Yeah. It's one of the best moments in the entire, him being introduced to George Lucas and the kind of weirdness of working with Lucas, but also the fact that John Williams is I knew immediately this was special.
Yeah.
That it had a special energy to it. And I'm we need to do this with a true orchestra. And they said, well, fly you out to London and we'll use the London Symphony Orchestra for it. And he was like, okay, let's do it.
One of my favorite moments of this documentary that gave me a little flashback to my snarky Starkey days was we get the setup early on, especially when we get the here's a cut version of the binary sunset from Tatooine.
Yeah.
And George was like, yeah, that's not really, I want it to be more like this. And John Williams goes and rewrites something that night, comes back and plays him the new thing. And then we get the more well-known version of it today. Transpose that an hour later with J.J. Abrams being John Williams is being incredibly gracious and asking for feedback and did I do okay? And he's John Williams. There's only one answer to that. It's so indicative of oh my God, J.J. Abrams, this is why I don't like what you did with the new trilogy ultimately, because you were too starstruck to actually do your job as a director and say, well, actually, I think maybe this will fit. You didn't push back on anything. You just took whatever he gave you. And he might not always be right. He's asking for feedback because he wants your feedback. That's your job as the director.
Yeah. I guarantee, seeing his reaction,
I was just fucking Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, 100%. No, this is the thing about him is John Williams says, I like getting notes back. Earlier in the documentary, he's all of a sudden, I now have a working relationship where I'm getting okay, I got 100 notes on my feedback from Spielberg. We're working, we're good. On his third movie with him, he got 100 notes back. He goes, okay, we're good on this. George Lucas, like you mentioned, immediately giving him feedback on stuff. And that just being a very, very conductive working relationship where George has a lot of notes. He goes over the notes. John Williams comes back and it's that's better, or we need to work on that again. And then you get, J.J. Abrams being a fanboy and let's be honest, screwing up. Just not, and this is kind of the problem with J.J. Abrams and Star Wars in general, is he was so tied to the, member berry nostalgia aspect of Star Wars that he, and that, for me, that works in The Force Awakens because this needs to feel super familiar, so we're ready for the next launch.
I mean,
but then trying to peel that back and try to give us Rise of Skywalker is where I just
I mean the issue even with Force Awakens, Force Awakens on a first viewing, I enjoy way more than I do now, and my frustration that I've grown over the years is just exemplified in this of like he has too much reverence for the originals that he doesn't bring anything new to the table. Or the things that he does bring new to the table are the J.J. Abrams things that I don't like, of like, I'm just going to do a mystery box. And there's never going to, I'm going to make this mystery box and then not have to solve it because he didn't think he was going to be coming back for Rise of Skywalker.
Specifically because he's like, yeah, I'll set up these mystery boxes. And then people didn't like the answer to some of those mystery boxes. And so they're like, JJ, we need you to come back. And JJ's like, what? You need me to be responsible for the things that I've created?
You need me to close out a story? Oh no.
Yeah, that was your first mistake.
Yeah.
Shout out to that original screenplay though, which had like Finn leading like a slave rebellion and stuff on Coruscant. If you ever have an opportunity to read the original screenplay, has some good stuff in it. Has some like really, really good stuff in it. Mm-hmm. That really like carries it over. I've always maintained the position that Finn should have come back and been like the Princess Leia, but like a surprise Princess Leia, kind of like, oh, he's actually the prince of like this like people or whatever. Anyway, I always maintained the switcheroo of who's filling what traditional role would have been interesting and cool.
Sure. Even that though is still like echoing too much of what came before as opposed to doing something new. Or it's the other thing, which admittedly is some of the stuff I like the most about Last Jedi, of like it's subverting what came before for the sake of subverting. I think that would be why I wouldn't necessarily want Finn to be like a super secret like somebody in the world. I like that he's
just a stormtrooper.
He's just a stormtrooper.
This is my thing, and this has always been kind of like my thing about it, is I always wanted them to like pull in a lot of the like I forgot the race's name, but it's they are empathetic and they have like force touch. Basically, it's the same thing that you get out of that the main character in the Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order games has, like the force touch, like they can read the memories of objects and stuff like that. That's like an advanced force power that very few people have, but there's an entire race of people in the galaxy who have that ability on some level. Quinlan Voss is the name of the Jedi Master that they have in expanded universe stuff, and pulled in, I believe, for Clone Wars stuff too.
He's in Clone Wars. Yeah.
He is in Clone Wars. He has that ability. That's why he's like the best tracker out of the Jedi. If I remember, that's why he was pulled in for Clone Wars, was for that purpose. Anyway, back to what we were originally here to talk about, John Williams. Yeah. Sorry about getting off on that tangent. No, John Williams is awesome, and like, holy crap, yeah, no. So that's a problem for J.J. Abrams, for us to be like, hey, J.J. Abrams, you should watch this documentary and realize where you screwed up, because it turns out working professionals want feedback, and when they ask for feedback, it's not out of professional courtesy. It's because, hey, I'm working on this, I think it could be better. What are your thoughts? What are your notes?
Yeah, help. Like, it is a collaboration. Help me make this better for your movie. Yeah, don't just take what I've given you.
Because the man's been a journeyman his entire life. He's never thought he's above anything. It's very clear by the way that he talks about how he writes music. He goes, yeah, every morning I get up and I write 5 notes of something and do that. And he said, and he even mentioned, he goes, yeah, a lot of the younger guys, they have computers that they work with and stuff, but I just go by hand. I play 6 to 9, that's like 9 notes. I have to take time to write those 9 notes out. And I'm like, and he's talking about like his very like old school process. And it's like, yeah, but that's why things sound so good when he does it, because he's constantly playing and iterating them. He's not just finishing a score and it's, out the door for revisions or whatever. He's constantly like listening to it and improving it while he's playing it.
Yeah. What do I have here? I love that he was so excited to get to do the Superman theme because he had enjoyed the comics growing up as a kid. And then I love the the clip that we see of Christopher Reeves at a Boston Pops gala honoring John Williams, basically saying I am not Superman without that music.
I can't fly without that theme beneath me. And also, I loved when he talked about composing for it, and you can see like the love he has for that movie, where he says, "Yeah, because when he catches her, we have to have there has to be a crescendo, and it has because there's a love meet cute moment, or a meet cute moment for these two characters." And they have to there's this love that they have you have to grow this out. And he's explaining it while the music's playing. It's like, this man's brilliant. Yeah. This man's just brilliant.
Love the little Ke Huy Quan popping in, being delightful just as always. Excitedly, the whole thing of like him seeing Steven at the Oscars and John Williams being right behind him, and them getting into like the short round theme is like, oh, did you know do you remember the theme he wrote for? Of course I remember the theme he wrote. How many people get like
A theme
from John Williams for themselves? And I love that he just kind of goes into or that they went into singing that together. Like,
yeah, oh my
shout out
gosh.
to Chris Martin's like
Oh, yeah.
presence in this as just like
The weirdest insert for
his
me.
love of this, and very specifically like his love of E.T. so
Yeah.
much so that like Coldplay uses that as like their walk on stage music.
Yeah, he goes, I need to listen to something that makes me feel like I'm soaring, like
Yeah.
I'm lifting up through air. And it's like, that makes sense. And he called up, he goes, I wanted to use it for our walkout music. So I called, I messaged Steven and John about it, and they gave me permission to use it. And it's just like, that's super cool. First off, Steve Martin, you asked permission to use Chris Martin, sorry. Steve Martin's a totally different actor. Chris Martin asked permission. A lot of people just wouldn't do that. He's like, I want to ask permission about it.
Yeah.
Cool for him. I'm not a big Coldplay guy, but like I respect Chris Martin a whole lot more after watching him in this documentary where he talks about like, hey, people don't realize the person pushing pop music and made pop music a thing is John Williams.
Yeah, him declaring John Williams as like the greatest pop artist of all time. I was like, good on you. I love that Chris Martin is like that level of nerdy for John Williams music in the same way that like Steven Spielberg was when he was coming up and like new film soundtrack stuff. Like he's very tapped into that, and it's stemming from E.T. and the flying over the moon kind of soaring majestic themes that you get in that. But yeah, then we have. Oh, I took the note here that I think this documentary is made so much better by the occasional cuts to Spielberg home movies that we get, because Spielberg was like recording so many of these like orchestral sessions. Him saying that like the things he looked forward to most after a hard day on a film were when he would get to go and like sit in on the John Williams recording sessions for the movies. I love the story of him and Kate Capshaw just going over and hearing Schindler's List music played for the first time and just breaking into tears. John Williams breaking into tears.
He's like 3 notes in, Kate's in tears, 5 notes in, I'm in tears, 9 notes in, John's in tears.
Yeah.
Still playing through his tears.
Yeah.
And it's like, because if you listen to that soundtrack, it is a haunting soundtrack. It is a brutal soundtrack.
And as somebody who has known the name Itzhak Perlman for, most of my life, it was like, they're neat to put a face to the name. And I've probably like put a face to the name over the years or something like that. But like seeing that, like, that's the thing that he's really connected to, in the same, like, in the way that like, I know Yo-Yo Ma is a cellist. I always think of Yo-Yo Ma from his appearances on The West Wing, but I know he's like a world-renowned cellist prior to that and, continued on. So even that, like, I love Yo-Yo Ma coming in here and having his, I love the way that they brought in like musicians to come in and talk, especially because they're talking about his music that isn't his movie music. They're talking about like for the most part, Itzhak obviously talks about Schindler's List being the thing that he gets requested the most. But like, I love the violinist that comes up and basically, plays some of his concerto stuff that John Williams wrote for the Pops, and like him getting to, do those compositions as a different avenue of creativity aside from the movies, and him even saying like, movies are great because you usually, you go in and record, a whole bunch in the spring, because they're all going to be going out in the summer and getting their releases, but then you got like the summer off or you got the fall off, and you can like, that's when he could go and work on these other projects and create these other things and like create bassoon compositions because he really liked that instrument when he was, growing up. And
this is why he's the coolest, man. This is why he's the coolest. It's just because he's a working man. Mm-hmm. It's like, I had those months off from my regular job so I could do what I actually like doing, which is just like run music, like stuff, do music things, like,
and go do these, like, give back to the kids here at Tanglewood and stuff like that. Yeah. Love
like his entire Tanglewood section I thought was beautiful. Just like, yeah, I'd like going 4 to 6 times a year to do work with these kids. And it's like, that's crazy that you are this super legendary composer and you're like, yeah, I want to just go do this. And it's like, it's so awesome. He's so cool. But also I think that's also why he's made it to like 92 is because those people that make it to that age group are people who never stop moving and never stop working.
Yeah.
And so like it makes sense. Also, he looks great for 92. He looks amazing for 92.
I love that we do get that little tangent into his work with Oliver Stone being such a very different way of working, where like Oliver Stone was like, I want you to write music for me and we'll edit the movie around
it,
the
yeah.
music that you create, kind of thing. Like such a stark contrast to
he'd say, give me 3 or
work that
4
you've been
tracks.
doing. Yeah.
And we'll edit around those and then you fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
And he's like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess. And he's like, well, read the script and read the material and whatever. It was like, okay, here's 3 or 4 songs. And like Born on the 4th of July is, for people who haven't seen it, it's a very difficult movie because it's just a very brutal film because it's a very honest portrayal. It's based off Oliver Stone's own experiences in Vietnam. And it's a brutal film. Like I think it's between that and Platoon that are like kind of like the really like difficult like Vietnam films. Just the visceral violence of that existence of being a GI in Vietnam. And just kind of like the toil that those men were in. And like what it did to them.
Yeah.
It's truly incredible. And so, you know, that's a film that I've seen a couple of times, and each time I watch it, I'm just like, it literally coins war is hell. And it is definitively that good. And I never really thought that it was John Williams music. It never occurred to me. It's like, John Williams can write some like tough scores. Like, cause there's those like really high energy moments of Born in the 4th of July. Those like really like, you know, really heavy moments that are like really like pumped up. And then there are some really like sad tones to that movie that like looking back on it now, it's like Johnny Williams is really good. He's really freaking good at what he does.
Yeah. I love in that same kind of vein, when they work on Saving Private Ryan, the acknowledgement that silence can be as powerful, if not more so, than music, if you know like when to use silence. So you obviously have the iconic Normandy sequence that doesn't have any music playing until you start zooming in on one of the Ryan family there at the end. Love the little bit with Chris Columbus saying like, yeah, we had somebody for Home Alone, but it didn't work out. And John's agent, reached out and he wanted to work on this. And, we used his music and did a test screening and it tested 500% better once we had John's score in there. Like, yeah. And that is one of those like, oh yeah, like it's certainly not a like one of the first things I think about when I think of John Williams music, but it is certainly like, I think of Home Alone music and I immediately have songs come to mind from Home Alone. I love the idea that the Hedwigs theme was written without seeing a frame of the movie. He basically was asked to do it as like a commercial piece first, but he came up with this, mystical, fantastical thing.
Mm-hmm.
I will always have a little, or that song will always have a little place in my heart because when I was in high school, I was in a show, You Can't Take It With You. It was one of the first plays I was in, but I played a character who like the show is all about this like very eccentric family, and everybody in the family has their own weird little thing. Like somebody likes to be a ballerina. I played the xylophone and was just banging around a xylophone all the time. But I would sneak in like normally I'm playing like silly or bad things, but then I was like, hey honey, listen to this, and I would play the Rugrats theme, or hey honey, listen to this, and I would play Harry Potter theme. And in particular I did the Harry Potter bit as an homage to, I had to miss like a band invitational for like the marching band, and the songs we were doing that year were like an ode to cinema, and it was like we did the Harry Potter theme, we did the theme from Gladiator, and we were doing Lord of the Rings music. And so because I had to miss one of those performances for the play I was in, I did like an homage to I did the Harry Potter theme. I learned how to play it in like because I wasn't playing. I was playing snare drum in actual marching band.
Yeah.
I wasn't playing the xylophone, but I learned how to play the Harry Potter music in like 5 minutes backstage. Like a friend of mine who was a much better piano player, basically like showed me the notes, helped me kind of like visualize it out, and I just learned it and played it and made it a little bit of my show. So I love that. Like I love the little trivia there of like he wrote that before he'd even seen a thing of the movie. Just,
Yep.
It was they wanted a commercial for the Harry Potter thing, and he was like, all right, well here's a magical fantastical theme to play with. I love that he touches on the idea that he wasn't always necessarily excited about or interested in coming back for sequels, but he had such like an ownership over the music that he wanted to, if he could, kind of come back for them. Obviously, most notably coming back and doing most of the, definitely all of the Skywalker saga, Star Wars stuff. But then, yeah, the fact that he only came back and did the first couple of Harry Potter movies, but he came back and did Jaws 2 or Jurassic Park 2. Obviously, the Indiana Jones one I think is the thing that he was most excited to come back to, just because of like the sense of adventure that you get with
Well,
Indiana Jones
he also loves
stuff.
composing anything for Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
He made mention of that. He was
that very much
composing.
gets a shout out.
Yeah, he is like, anything I can compose for Harrison Ford is amazing, because he just brings music to life in his acting, and it's like that's an incredible compliment to receive.
Yeah. And then shout outs to his 45 years at the LA Phil / the Hollywood Bowl from 78 to 2023. I don't know if he did a 2024 concert or if that's still to come. I didn't bother looking that up, but like as of when they were doing this in the movie, they were celebrating his 45 years there. And then shout outs to him getting honored over at the Sony Picture Studios. I like that. Obviously, like this weird meta thing of like so much of the work he did over the course of his career was recorded at the Sony Picture Studios, but he worked for all the studios. He did Paramount stuff, he did Fox stuff. Obviously, he does Disney stuff now, and so like the weird documentary thing of like a Disney documentary going to the Sony Pictures lot and filming some stuff there, while having so many other bits and bobs of music from across the spectrum in here. Just so much great stuff, and it was a delight to sit down and just kind of enjoy learning a bit about John Williams for a couple hours. Any final thoughts you want to give a shout out to or call out?
No, I think I'm good. I think I've shouted out everything I wanted to. An incredible documentary. Yeah.
Yeah. Also shout out to Hook being like the end credits.
Yes, Hook. Okay,
Love
that's
that.
another one I mentioned. Is like Hook's just like kind of mentioned in there a little bit, and that's an incredible score.
Yeah. That's
That's like definitively the Peter Pan score. When you ask me what is the score that defines Peter Pan, I would say Hook does.
Yeah. And I mean it's interesting because like Hook I think is much more of a cult classic that like it didn't do as great. It's in the that's chronologically in the like overall box office breakdown of things, it falls between Schindler's List and Superman at $300 million. So it didn't bomb, but it also wasn't great. I do love they touch on like his historical work, like with Lincoln, and stuff like that. It was a great shout out. I love that somebody came in and was like, "Catch Me If You Can," and the music that he does in that.
I want to mention that.
If he would come in, I reached out to his representation to say, "Hey, can you make this like a saxophone concerto piece?" And they wrote back saying it's already in the works, and he had
It'll be ready in
6
6
later or
weeks.
something. That is like that. That is so much of like John Williams isn't just doing this for the soundtrack. It is, hey, these are the things that orchestras can play in a modern age, and I love that. Yeah. Shout out to so much of that. And yeah, if you go through and just look at the things he's worked on over the years, it is just like a holy crap. Yeah, he's done a bit of everything. Obviously,
I don't think it's a bit. He's done a lot of everything.
yes, yeah. So shout out to John Williams. Diving into the report card, we grade from A+ to F. What do you want to give Music by John Williams.
I'm gonna give it an A. It's a bit long in the tooth for my taste. I feel like, but I get why everything's in there. But there's a few there are a few parts that like my interest kind of like my attention, not an interest. My interest never left. My attention started to wane just because of the long run time. Documentaries, I need them to be 90 minutes max for me to have like full attention. Otherwise, you start to lose me in some places.
Yeah, I think A is a good spot for me too. There were a couple things where I was like, okay, I don't know that we needed this little cutaway to like him playing golf with his daughter. But at the same time, I was like, oh, I guess that's probably a little bit more of why she's here in the documentary, because she's the one, actively in his
life and doing stuff with him. Her grandson's in it, or her son's in it. His grandson is in it. Which is like a nice family thing. You get to see a little bit more family. Like his other kids aren't in it, which like I brought up at the beginning, which is its own thing. But it's fine. But yeah, it's an A for both of us then.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Extra credit. Other suggestions. If you like this, you have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Don't know why that's the one they're recommending. But,
No idea.
and if you want more thoughts on that, we add that as That D Plus Show episode 197. Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. Don't know why that's the one they're recommending.
They're picking the worst ones, man. Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's worse than Kingdom of Crystal Skull, but
Yeah, sorry. They're picking the worst ones of their franchises, maybe.
yeah.
Actually, no. Dial of Destiny wasn't the worst one. I think we both kind of had Dial of Destiny in the middle of the rankings.
Yeah, I would say actually when we went back and
Compared to,
rewatched them, we all put Temple of Doom at the bottom.
Yeah, Temple of Doom, real not good. But yeah, Rise of Skywalker was That D Plus Show episode 83. The BFG. Don't know why that's one of the recommendations you pull, apart from it being a John Williams animated score that is on Disney Plus. But it's like there are so many other John Williams things on Disney Plus, like I believe Hook.
Hook is on there, yeah.
Put Hook on there. Home Alone. That's the one that makes sense to me. That D Plus Show.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 50. But yeah, I guess like part of me is like, why did you put Dial of Destiny and not Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark? Or why did you not put Star Wars A New Hope? But anyway. And then we switch over to the documentary side of things with recommendations for The Beach Boys, Howard, which is, I believe, a Disney Plus documentary, or a Disney documentary on Howard Ashman, I believe. I think that's right. Jim Henson Idea Man, and Stan Lee. Extracurriculars, you watching anything else on Disney Plus there, Cam?
You know what? Through kind of a little bit. I'm using Disney Plus to watch it. I've been watching English Teacher, which is through the Hulu portion of it.
Is English Teacher an anime?
No, it's not. It's a live action show. It's a comedy about an English teacher, like an English teacher in like modern high school. And as somebody who has been substituting for the last several months, it is really hitting home for me in a lot of ways. Of like, yeah, this is what kids are like now.
Yeah.
100%. Like I'm watching this. I'm like, this is the most realistic experience of like teacher to student relation as it is in the modern day that I have seen to date. Like this is the most like these are the most real teenagers I've seen on screen. Versus I think it's like bio, like no, it's a bio 101
AP Biology.
AP Biology, yeah.
Is that it?
AP Bio is what I think
Bio,
it is. Yeah, AP versus AP Bio where all the children are caricatures. This one is like straight up, this is real high school. Like these kids are I have seen children exactly like these kids. I have taught children like these kids. This show is nailing it. Full stop. Really good stuff.
Yeah, I asked if it was anime because I've seen, I've been watching more Futurama, as I mentioned a little bit last week. I just kind of had that playing while I was building some Lego stuff earlier in the week. But when I hop in there, I see the anime section of Hulu and like, oh, that's right. There's a whole bunch. There's like 3 or 4 seasons of My Hero Academia that I could catch up on now.
You certainly could, yeah.
But then I go to the show page and it's like, here's the dub of the episode.
Bad.
Here's the sub episode. And it's like, well, if I tried to watch these in order, it's going to be like playing in a sequential order. And it's like, no, you should just have a show page for the dub and a show page for the sub. Just let me watch the dub.
I also like the subs, like the subtitles used for.
Yeah, we don't need to dive down that pretentious rabbit hole that you have because I don't care.
If
but
I'm
anyway,
if I'm watching anime, I don't want it in black boxes. I want it in like clear
Oh,
subtitles.
gotcha.
That's my thing.
Gotcha.
Oh, I'm not doing like a sub versus dub thing. No.
okay.
For stuff that's like sub only, if like that they have there, because I tried watching something, but it was sub only, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll watch it subbed. I don't have a problem with that. But then they give me black box subs, and I'm like, no. I will watch any English speaking show with subtitles on in the black box. But there's something about like being raised on like the fan created subtitled stuff for encoding for anime shows, like watching, like torrenting those and watching those, that it triggers something wrong in the back of my brain. I cannot do it.
Sure.
So it's unfortunate. But yeah, but I'm watching English Teacher, which is just a fantastic show. Granted, I've only seen 2 episodes, but so far it's been great.
Yeah. I'm like jumping into Futurama. The thing I'll say on that was like, I love how much Futurama loves subverting the like, well, it's the end of the episode, so everything has to be reset back to normal. So much so that they have like specific episodes that call out the fact that like things haven't all gone back to normal. But in this, I love that like they have an episode completely dedicated to paying off Kif and Amy having kids in the original run of the series.
You just watched the episode where their kids came
like,
back.
Yeah, the like Amy's alarm goes off, and it's for a appointment she set 20 years ago. Of like, now I'm going to be ready, and they show like the scenes from that episode. It's like, yeah, if The Simpsons would just never refer back to that, never call back to that. They'll just continue doing like their own news stories all the time. But I love that the Futurama is like, no, and like even Fry calling out the fact that he's been in the future for 5 years now or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like there's an element of like, okay, well, when are you going to have Fry call out the fact that he's been in the future longer than he was in the past?
And he does, like that's
yeah.
But no, I love that because also one of my favorite parts about that episode is the ages of their kids are determined by how much like sunlight they got, basically, or like how healthy their like hatchery was.
Yep.
And they're the only like 3 that survive because that happens on Kif's home planet.
Yeah, the like what does that mean? It means don't give them names yet or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, don't name them yet. Because the hatchlings are having to feed. They gave it some verb, the minnowing or the winnowing.
Yeah.
The winnowing.
The winnowing, yeah.
Yeah. What does the winnowing mean? It means don't give them names yet.
It's so good.
And then we just hear kids getting eaten off screen or whatever.
Yeah. This is one of those great episodes that is just like real. That's one of the great episodes that they do.
Yeah.
I love it. No, I love it. They also like relationships change over time. Not everybody's always together.
Yep.
It's great.
I think one of the last ones I watched was like a cryptocurrency thing where they went out to the Old West to mine Ethereum or whatever, Thallium for but it was like, all of the power is being put into the crypto servers, so it's like we live in the Old West, and basically just gave them a chance to do a whole bunch of old Wild West stuff. So enjoyed that. And always a fan of Roberto popping up with his stabbing, and in this episode he had a 6-shooter that shot knives. I was like, great new twist on Roberto. Shout out to Futurama. All right, well, that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk music by John Williams. You follow Cameron at Rev Cabbage, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you give a shout out to there, Cam?
I am. I'm gonna. This is not show related. I'm gonna.
Sure.
I mean, we kind of hit up on it earlier in the show. We just had the election. Things are really tough right now for a lot of people. Just a reminder put out there: take care of yourself first. You need to look inwards. Take care of yourself. You put on your mask before you help other people put on their masks. In those plain situations, like take care of yourself right now. Like we're raw from it. It's tough. But we got to take care of ourselves first, and then we can start helping other people. So take the time you need. I know I am. I know Trevor is. Like we're taking our time to bounce back from emotionally where we're at with this stuff, and we're gonna have to hunker down. It's gonna be a tough 4 years, but we're gonna make it.
Yep, and keep the fight alive. Don't politics doesn't end on election day. Politics starts on election day. So keep the fight alive if you can. But yeah, as Cam said, take care of yourself first so that you can be there for the fight. Well said. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I guess the thing I'll shout out in that vein, I'm increasingly less and less on Twitter, but you can find me and Cameron at our respective handles, Trevor J. Starkey on Blue Sky, on Threads.
Yeah.
And I've not created a That Nerdy Site Show account on either of those yet, but it's like technically we have a That Nerdy Site Instagram, so I guess we could probably very easily get a Threads one wrapped up. But that's more of a thing of like, hey, can we get Buffer to integrate with those? Because I'm ready to stop posting anything to Twitter.
I'll be very honest. I'm not on social media right now.
Yeah.
Like you will not find me on social media right now. I'm taking that's me taking time for myself is
Sure.
I'm only using social media to check in with some people
Yeah.
who I know I need to check in on. And other than that, I am just trying to stay off of it as much as possible. So
Sure.
it'll probably be like that I'm going to try throughout the next weekend. We'll see. I'm a social media junkie. I literally went to school for it. So, yeah.
One of the nice things I did 6 months ago was I uninstalled the Twitter app, but I still very regularly just kind of browse Twitter on like a mobile browser thing. But at least uninstalling the app is a little bit. I'm on there a little bit less than I was, and
Sure.
I'm
You're not getting
I'm
notifications.
Yeah, exactly. I'm certainly on Blue Sky and Threads much more these days, and I think a lot of people have really started making the jump over there. So I'll say, like, if you want to keep up with us, that's probably the better place long term to do it, because I imagine my days of posting or tweeting about the show and other stuff like that on Twitter itself are probably winding to a close here. But in addition to that, we didn't have a That Nerdy Site Show this week, but we should be back next week. I finished Dragon Age the Veilguard already, so I'll be giving my thoughts on that.
I played a lot of Pokemon TCGP.
There we go. Yeah, we'll be talking about Pokemon Pocket. Yeah.
Also, I'll be talking about what it's like finally finishing the Wheel of Time series.
Oh, there you go. You've been doing some reading?
I finally finished the last book in Wheel of Time, which is a 14-book saga that I've been on for the last
Is
10
that
years.
the one that Scott was asking about a little while back that I
No, Scott was
volunteered
asking
you for?
about some Brandon Sanderson stuff.
Okay.
Brandon Sanderson did write the last 3 books, but
Okay.
that's because Robert
So
Jordan died.
I am
Oh,
right
you-
to have
yes.
those two things linked in
Yes,
my brain.
you are
Okay,
completely
yeah.
right to do that. The connection makes sense.
Yeah. As somebody who hasn't read Wheel of Time or any Brandon Sanderson
Yeah.
stuff, it was I feel like through osmosis I've picked up that Brandon Sanderson is somehow involved with Wheel of Time.
Yes.
And yeah, that's
he wrote
that's
the
what it
last
was.
3 books after Robert Jordan died. He was specifically picked by Robert Jordan's widow, who was his editor, because she felt he could do the best at adapting to Robert Jordan's style.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of thoughts, I'm not going to go into in the podcast because you haven't read them and most people haven't.
Yeah.
It's a really long series, but I am going to talk really more about what it means to finish a 14-book series after starting it. The first book I read was in 2011.
Sure.
So
The other thing to call out here, next week's episode of That D Plus Show will be Deadpool and Wolverine, because that's going to be dropping on Disney Plus next week. So we'll kind of return to the Marvel-verse for that big bombastic rated R fest. So it'll be a fun one to dive into next week. And then we got to figure out what we're going to do after that.
we're doing
I've talked about potentially doing the Jim Henson Idea Man documentary if we want to do that.
I
but-
want to do that one now.
Okay.
After
so
John
you wanna-
Williams, the quality of that, I'm
Yeah.
And you said it's very much in the same vein.
It's very much in the same vein. I like it's another one produced by Ron Howard and Brian Grazer, so it's in
Sounds
that
great.
same kind of thing. It also you mentioning the fact that this one has a weird little family connection thing of it's weird that only one of John Williams' kids.
Am
is
I
in
going to see
this.
that again?
Brian Henson is real. No, there are a couple of the Henson kids in the Jim Henson one, but it is very much some of them are very noticeably not around, I guess. So it's and that one in particular, there is a much more fraught relationship between the Henson parents and the relationship that they had and the divorce and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it was brutal.
Versus and I think that one's much more so Henson was just kind of an absentee dad because he was traveling the world with the Muppets.
Yeah.
Doing all
That was definitely the fact that like when John Williams' daughter says, "I slipped my dad a note under his door while he was working," and being like, "I would really appreciate if you could like attend to me at some point," and he got angry about it, and I'm like, "That's not good.
Yeah.
That's not the good like." 2 kids missing from this documentary, not a good sign.
Yeah.
After that moment, but I think one, they're both like working musicians, and it's very clear she was there to help support and celebrate. He was there for an event, and they've probably gone to plenty of events of things being named after him over the years.
Sure. Yeah. So anyway, okay. So we'll do Deadpool and Wolverine next week, and then Jim Henson, Idea Man, and then we are going to be taking the Thanksgiving week off. So. Then we'll be, and I got to figure out what we're going to do for all the holiday stuff. Cause much like Halloween, we're wearing a little thin on what still Christmas things are there. And I mean, yeah, we're going to dive into whatever the 5th Home Alone movie is at this point. And I'm not looking forward to that at all. Cause that's just guaranteed not going to be good, but, we'll see. We'll see what we have on the.
We got to make sure Logan's back for that one. So to continue the tradition of me not watching though.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Well, that is going to do it. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site. Again, hopefully we'll work on getting a Blue Sky account set up for that to replace the Twitter stuff here in the near future or something. But for now, we're still on Twitter for That Nerdy Site stuff. Or you can go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. That's probably actually the better way. Just go to thatnerdysite.com and subscribe to like the WordPress so you get the notifications and auto updates there. Or go to youtube.com/thatnerdysite and subscribe, ring the bell, all that stuff. Because yeah, there you go. If you liked what you heard, please once again remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. As always, thank you for joining us. Stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed.